In this video, we're going to talk about palette knives. This is for beginners, so you get a good idea of what type of palette knife you need when you are getting into painting. And I have a whole bunch of different palette knives here, and there's a few that aren't here that I'm going to talk about, so I'll throw up a picture of it so you will not make a mistake on what not to get. First of all, I'm going to start with why do we need a palette knife? The palette knife is meant to mix paint. That's its primary goal. And so today I'm going to talk about the best palette knife to mix paint and not the best palette knives to do palette knife painting. That's a different topic altogether. So I'm going to move these aside. This is the traditional palette knife. And so it is a trowel shape, and it's really good and very practical for mixing. And I'll actually show you a mixing demonstration on the best way to mix paint. And so I'll put out different sizes and different shapes of trowel knives that I enjoy using. And I have trowel knives that are even bigger than this, but this range handles pretty much 99% of all my painting, even when I'm on a big painting. There's those rare occasions that I'll have to pull out my extra large palette knife and if I'm mixing a very large quantity of paint, but most of the time these do a very good job. This elongated oval palette knife I discovered years ago is really handy for mixing small quantities of paint to middle quantities of paint, anything the size of a couple quarters. The nice thing, this small knife keeps the paint in a smaller cluster where the paint doesn't spread out, and that's really important when you're trying to work on a palette space and you need to mix a lot of colors. You don't want to use all that space up by mixing a few colors. Here are some other palette knife shapes that people like to use when they mix paint. I'm not fond of these. They're a little bit more difficult to use, and they usually work well if you're doing palette knife painting, I've noticed. But again, we're not talking about that. Here's a palette knife that some students have brought in. This isn't for painting. This is for something else, usually people who work with ink and stuff. This is called an inker's knife, and it goes by a few other names, but it's for people who work with inks. And then we have little round ones like this. This would not be a good knife to mix with, but it is great for if you're doing textures. And so you can use different mediums like modeling paste and creating oil textures and stuff with this little spoon shaped palette knife. So if you are a beginning artist and you want a good knife to mix with, you're going to pick something in this range. You want the knife head to be 2 inches or under. You don't want to get them too big and you don't want to get them too tiny. This one in the middle is probably 1.25 inches, and I would recommend not getting smaller than that. So somewhere between 1.25 inches and 2 inches, and it's going to be a good palette knife for beginning painting. If you treat these palette knives correctly, they'll last for many years. Some of these knives, like this one in the middle, has lasted me over 25 years. That's pretty good. So I don't get too abusive with them. Some of you are going to want to be cheap and you're going to see plastic ones. Do not get the plastic ones. They are very frustrating to mix paints with because they flex way too much and it's hard to get a good mixture. It'll take you probably 4 times longer to mix your paint with a plastic knife, and then they eventually break, and so you need to get a bunch of them. And you can get a pretty good knife for $5 that will last you many, many years. There's another knife here I'm going to show you. It's metal, but the whole entire metal part of it is flat, and they tend to bend way too much. They're not as quality as the knives that I'm showing you here right now. So these knives have a nice round shaft, so the metal is really thick and it doesn't bend well. And then welded to this shaft is a flat stainless steel, flexible, very flexible blade. And these are what a lot of professionals like using. And they're fairly cheap. Like I said, you can pick these up for probably $5 as cheap. There may be some different ones with rubber handles and stuff that may go for $10. But once you have it, if you take care of it, it'll last for many, many years. So now I'm going to show you how to mix paint. Okay, we're ready to mix. I'm going to take some white here. This is titanium white. And I'm making a mess of it. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of black. Put that in there. And now what I want to do is mix these two together. And the way I'm mixing right now is the way masons mix when they mix their mortar for their bricks. And I learned this from my uncle when we were doing some brickwork, and I use it on my oil paints when I mix. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the paint towards me in little circular chops. So I'm going to do little circular chops like this. I'm going to go very slow at the beginning, and it may not look like it's doing much, but every time it chops, and I'm only chopping in maybe a 1/16 of an inch to an 1/8 of an inch into my paint, I'm pulling it towards me. It's building up on the bottom of the knife. I can wipe back, tackle it from a slightly different position, and I'm pulling it towards me, and it's churning the paint. Okay, I'm going just very slow so you can see this. Pulling it towards me, churning the paint. It builds up on the bottom of the knife. I wipe back. Now I'm going to go a little faster. So when you're feeling pretty comfortable about it, you can go pretty quick with this. And the nice thing about this method is you can keep it in a very small area once you get good at it. So I'm keeping the mixed paint in a very small, tight area. Now, it's hard to get the color off the bottom. If I press on the bottom of my knife and I smear, I see there's pure white still on the bottom. So sometimes a quick wipe back on your paper towel and then rechop some more, and then you don't have that pure paint that's stuck to the bottom of your knife and not mixing well. Sometimes you need your paints mixed very thoroughly, and other times it doesn't matter as much, so you can do a semi-mix. And that is the best, fastest way I know to mix paint. Okay, I hope you found this little talk about palette knives helpful. And if you liked it, give me a like down below on the video, and I'll be making more of these.